Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Questions for Cole. It's August 5th today. This week, I want to turn your attention to a set of questions that was asked on the United Church of Canada Facebook page. These questions were posed by a colleague of mine, and I think they're worth looking at. By the way, if you're on Facebook, I encourage you to follow the United Church of Canada page. That way you'll be connected to a lot of good content, some good discussions, and all the latest news coming out of the National Church, including messages from our moderator, Richard Bott. But back to the questions for this week. These come from Reverend Brett, a United Church minister who is wondering about the future of the church. Here are the 3 questions that he posted. Given that the pandemic has already started to drastically change society, question 1, should the church exist anymore? If so, why? And he's really talking about our pre-COVID churches, traditional worship in our church buildings. Number 2, if we shift away from existing online services to provide Sunday worship, what should we do? How should we do it? What do people need? And the third question, what should our role be in helping to change society? Now, there were a number of great responses to his question. I'm just going to give you a couple of answers that different people responded with. Here's the first. Michael said, I do not think we are just delaying the inevitable because I trust the scientists to come up with a safe, effective vaccine. We are buying time until that day. Church will morph as our needs change, but church can use this opportunity to really be what people need. And what people need, he says, is community, solace, joy, music, contemplation, peace, and most of all, hope. Laura says, I believe we are long overdue for a rethinking of what church means and how it is done. I look at the experience through the lens of disability and caregiving, but I believe there are other communities who have similar critiques of us. I would love to see worship move away from traditional Sunday worship to become something far more inclusive. I think the first step might be to spend time talking to people who not only attend church, but people who would like to be part of the faith community, but for any number of reasons are not. We will never find a new way if we only talk to people embedded in the old ways. I am not convinced that religion has run its course, and certainly not spirituality. But I do agree that now might be the time to explore new possibilities. And she goes on to talk about how much money is spent sustaining buildings that no longer work. Fran says, first, what is church? The buildings, the people, services, service to society? For me, church is people. Church is or should be about people connecting. It doesn't have to be inside a building. A friend of mine, she says, was let go from her position as minister because the congregation could not afford the building and her. So ministry got cut. And in so doing, they signed their own death warrant as a congregation of followers of Jesus. If it's a choice between having a minister and actually doing ministry, or having a dead building, well, so much for the church. Then it should no longer exist. Then Fran goes on to talk about worship. Who and what do we worship? Frankly, I'm tired of that word and don't even use it anymore. The implications of worship in the current sense don't work anymore. Is reaching out and doing ministry not worship? Is Sunday worship our raison d'etre? Really? Can we not exist without that? Can we not work together without that? Can we not adapt to electronic means of being community? When I offer prayers and care for those around me, that's worship of God, if you will. In these times, if I'm connected to and supportive of those who struggle, isn't that what Jesus was about? I think we've allowed a false sense of worship to subvert the real message of Jesus. So his teachings become peripheral to the church because his teachings and examples are just too hard to do. And finally, she talks about our role, which she says should be following those teachings of Jesus. And we can do that without buildings and even without money. just like Jesus and his followers did back in New Testament times. She goes on to elaborate about that a little bit more. She ends with this: what ministry would we do? How could we make society better if we sold our buildings and used that money to live the teachings of Jesus? And if we lived those teachings, society would change for the better. Wow, lots to think about from Fran. And then Jan wonders whether the church is needed because another community group could serve the same purpose. But Bethan responds to that with a good challenge, saying, could it though? Could another group really serve the same purpose? How many other groups have people from multiple generations in one place, singing, silent, talking together, and experiencing the mysterious, sacred presence of the Creator, the teachings of Jesus, who started a love movement which brings together people to care about each other and the planet, and to seek justice for the vulnerable? Good questions. Stephen says, we are prayerfully and passionately trying to renew the church. I can't ignore the aging congregation who want to be together on Sunday mornings in their building, but at the same time, we need to look at all those who don't want that old style liturgy because it's not action-based as Jesus' ministry was. So many want justice to roll like a mighty river. I have more than enough room, he says, to keep on leading from the pulpit, as well as enough God-given and called energy to fight for the oppressed, to walk with the lost, to be with those who feel God but not in the traditional way. So he's advocating for a both-and solution. Interesting. And just a couple more for you to ponder. Catherine says, the church will always exist, however, it won't exist in the way that we think it should, and I'm okay with that. Personally, I think we spend too much time trying to control and worry about what has happened in the past and what will happen in the future, not enough time making meaning in the present. Right now, I'm loving all the online worship. I love the creativity and the diversity that different congregations bring to it. I love that I can worship with people across the country and I don't have to do it just at 10 on Sunday morning in one place. And the last word goes to Jane, who has some real challenges for us. She says, church in its traditional format should be on pause right now. There is a huge need for effective pastoral care. An enormous number of church members across the country are vulnerable seniors. Their self-isolation is a challenge in so many ways. The loss of their church community has had a huge hidden impact. Since COVID started, 3 of my family members have had their spouses die. Each of these a very active church member, and 2 are vulnerable seniors. Then there is our beloved sister-in-law, whose acute grief in the loss of her husband has become so much worse without the ongoing support of her church family. My family, she says, is a tiny sample of what is happening everywhere. Many of these people have spent decades contributing huge amounts of their time and their skills and their finances to our church. Now I believe we have a huge responsibility to bring the church to them. This vital piece of pastoral care is not being met by a brief 5-minute call every 3rd month. And it may not be the minister who needs to take on all of this, but we need to pay attention to these huge needs. This one post has created so much conversation online. So far, as I write this, there have been 79 comments made. And just a little teaser for you to look up the whole conversation for yourself. I just noticed that one of our previous ministers at Selkirk United Church, Barb Janes, just commented on the story. And you know that she will have some good words of wisdom to share. I also want to hear what you think. I'll continue that theme in my midweek message if you want to check that out too. But that's enough for now for this segment. I hope you are all well, and I hope that our little online messages and services are giving you some food for thought and some nourishment for your soul and some feeling of connection to your church family. Let us know what you're thinking, and please reach out to us anytime. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions for Cole for our next episode, send them along. My email address is cole@selkirkunitedchurch.ca. See you next time.